right, welcome back to another episode of Plasticast. I have a very special guest with us today, our fearless leader, our CEO here at Resilux America, and I think he's got some fun things to talk about and jump into some industry challenges and how we're handling it here at Resilux. Okay.
So, well, great to be here. I hesitated going second because, frankly, following you and Jonathan on the Maiden one was a little tough. I got a lot of good feedback. A lot of people enjoyed your guys' podcast. So hopefully this one is close to the first one.
Well, hopefully they'll get as much out of it as enjoying it. So, I think the theme for this conversation is really going to kind of revolve around PCR and what the industry is doing with it, what Resilux is doing with it, and we can kind of go from there. Okay. So, just from a big overview, what is the marketplace seeing right now?
Sure. Yeah, so post-consumer recycled material. First of all, this is just my viewpoint. I am not an expert on PCR. I've been dealing with it for a long time. There's certainly people that know more specifics than I do, but I think I have a unique viewpoint working for so many companies that have dealt with PCR. But yeah, I think it's a tipping point time in the marketplace. It's a little volatile. We've seen spikes, ups and downs over the last few years, a lot of it driven by legislation, and then a lot of it driven by pricing. So, big picture, if California enacted their legislation and everybody complied with that, there's not enough post-consumer material in the United States to even fill all the California requirements. So what happens is a state like New Jersey passes their laws, and all of a sudden people go, oh, well, we need more PCR. When demand goes up, prices go up because supply is tight and fixed, and so we see that kind of up and down. And so right now we're going to start to see the ups. The PCR suppliers are very good at capturing when markets start to go up, of getting price increases.
So. Awesome. Yeah, I know from a sales perspective, I get questions a lot from customers, and they kind of saw that New Jersey legislation is a tipping point, and it's kind of like, how is New Jersey the one that's kind of leading the charge here? So what exactly is New Jersey doing?
Well, they're just following suit with everybody else. At the end of the day, I think all these states are going to follow suit. Think about like California with gasoline standards and emissions. At some point, the car company said we can't build cars just for California. And so New Jersey's sitting there going, well, if New York's doing it and California's doing it, then we need to do it too. And I'm not getting into politics, but New Jersey tends to be a little bit more progressive state, a little more liberal. And so recycling is more important to liberal states than maybe conservative states. And with the mass of people in New York, New Jersey, and then eventually Pennsylvania, Maryland, companies go, it's just too hard to do some product for some states and other products and non-PCR for others. So we're just going to convert everything over to PCR and just be done with it.
So what does that do for Resilux's customer base? I know we're getting lots of calls on what our options are, and what are the customers looking to do right now to kind of make sure they keep their shelf space per se?
Well, at some point when resin pricing got high, customers were willing to pay the penalties because it was cheaper to pay the penalties than pay the upcharge.
Okay.
I think this next wave, it's pretty much, we got to be committed to PCR and just do it. So what does that do for our customer base? I think now it's a matter of, hey, can I get supply? Where's pricing going to be? And what does this PCR look like?
Okay. Because I've seen a lot of customers too says, hey, I've got X amount of percentages, I want to try to bump it to this. Is that them kind of trying to play it safe and being ahead of the curve, or is that just trying to be a selling point per se?
It's probably a combination of everything. Some customers, it really depends on their strategy. We do, and I won't mention any customer names here, we have some customers where they want to be pictured as a sustainable leader. So they have converted and just said, we want to be 100% PCR. They promote it, they advertise it, it's all part of their brand, and so that's part of their strategy. Some companies, it's like willingly or grudgingly saying, well, I'll go 25% because that's the minimum, how much is that going to cost me? And then you have people in the middle of like, well, 51% sounds better than 25, so let's do 51, but I don't like the look of it, so maybe 51 is too much, I'll start with 25, and if my customers like that, I may ratchet it up. So it really just depends on their overall strategy.
So another thing we see on the sales side a lot is new product development. whether it's a new customer altogether or it's a current customer trying to bring on a new product line. So we're seeing a lot of, hey, if we're going to do a new product, if we're going to develop something, let's go ahead and develop this with PCR. And that's one of the big challenges we get is how do we go from current product on the shelf to a new product with PCR in it? What exactly... What are the customers looking at when they're trying to make that transition?
No, I think that's an excellent point, because it's almost like, well, it may be hard to convert my existing products, but if I come out with something new, let's include it. So our number one goal is for virgin and PCR to be similar.
Okay.
Now, way to go on that, but for example, clarity. Right now, in the early part of it, people actually wanted it to not look as good as virgin because they wanted to show off that it was PCR. Well, now all of a sudden, everybody's got PCR and it looks on the shelf and like, we don't want it to look like PCR. So how do we get a clear, product? Two, it's like, what's my price point? Consumers say they'll pay more for PCR, but the retailers have proven they really don't want to pay a lot more for PCR. So yes, there is a premium, but we can get that premium down. And even with the high quality clarity, get it to not at par with virgin, but closer. When municipalities and states start collecting more and more bottles and there's more supply, the pricing will come down. Okay. So I think that in the long term is what's going to happen.
So from an option standpoint, customer calls, sales team, you, whoever, and says, what are my options with PCR? What is Resilux offering their customer base right now?
So a couple years ago, we were offering a gamut of products from poor clarity, low priced to high clarity, high price. And we've really said, our customers really didn't want the low quality, low price. They wanted more in that middle, and now even more clear. So we really only offer two options: super clear and just kind of regular.
Okay.
And then secondly, they want to make sure there's supply. If I were in their shoes right now, I would want to make sure that whoever I'm buying PCR from or converter, I want to make sure that they can keep up that demand. As this demand picks up, prices go up, there's not enough supply. We're positioned with our two suppliers to ensure that we have adequate supply.
Okay.
And so that's really what we spent the last 2 years doing, both developing a more clear PCR, but also making sure that as the market grows, that we can keep up with the demand.
And that's encouraging, because I feel like that's the two big things right now with a lot of our customers is, hey, how clear can we get it? Can we make sure we can get it?
Yep.
So that's really good to hear, good to see. So we've got a new customer. They want to put PCR in a new product. What exactly are they looking at? What are the challenges they may come across when doing so?
Got it. So a few things we do really well here is being able to, if a customer says, hey, I've got a new design, show me what a 50% PCR looks like. We can create a quick prototype mold, put some 50% PCR in, and they can see it right away. This is what it's going to look like. That kind of tells them right away, oh, well, this looks pretty good. So that gets over that clarity issue. Most of the PCRs out there are not necessarily high performance PCRs, so the clarity and the performance PCR that we use is almost like virgin.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we've been developing 25% PCR for hot fill, which is very unusual, but you shouldn't see any performance issues with the high clarity PCR that we're using. So it really should be just like virgin, other than the fact that it does have 50% PCR.
So I mentioned the hot fill piece to this. I know we're kind of going off on PCR a little bit, but we're getting a lot of hot fill requests. That's kind of a hot ticket item right now, along with PCR. And do you imagine these two trains kind of colliding of I need PCR and hot fill for a particular juice bottle or whatever?
Most of the legislation exempts that type of product.
Okay.
But I do think those brands, because hot fill brands usually are a little bit higher premium, I think they want to be sustainable. So while they may not be forced legislatively to put PCR in, having that as an option is good. And I think secondly, especially if it performs as well, that might be the default down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really exciting that our quality team's already testing that and getting certain percentages passed, and we're kind of ready to go when that question, if it does come, from one of our customers, we're ready for it. So.
Absolutely.
So if you're one of our customers, or you're just you're a buyer, what are some of the things you should be concerned about when trying to include PCR into the product?
Yeah. So if I were a buyer and knowing what I know, I would worry about three things. One, my pricing. What is it tied to? We don't make money on our resin. That's not our goal. We try to provide really high quality and consistent supply. We tie everything to CBI, Chicago Bale, and our suppliers do the same thing. Of course, if Chicago Bale moves up, the pricing moves up, but at least you know that and you can monitor that. There's an index that people can follow. I'm sure most of the people that buy PCR product knows about CPI. The second one is just availability. Not that we would ever tell a customer because you're not contracted with us that you can't get PCR, but if you have a contract with us and you have PCR content, you will get PCR.
Okay.
If we run out of PCR, the non-contract customers would be affected first. So I'd want to make sure that I had supply, and the way to do that is through a contract. And then the last one is just the quality. How do you guarantee the quality? Well, our two suppliers that we have get their product from very reliable sources. It's mostly bottle deposits, and so you're not getting all that metal and other junk that's thrown in there. So you already start out with a good process, good feedstock, but then their processing is really good, and then our processing, because we've been running PCR for so long, is really good too. So I would be worried about those three things.
Okay. I mean, how would you prioritize those? You've got three big challenges. You really want to kind of say, hey, as the leader of Resilux, I want to focus on A, or I want to focus on B. What are those priorities for you?
So I used to joke, hearing buyers talk, said, I want a lower price, but I get fired for not having material. So I'd make sure I'd get my material first. Depending on your strategy, if quality is really your cornerstone, I'd worry about quality and then price follows. There's not a ton you can do about price. I mean, I wish we had more leverage. We don't buy a ton of PCR as a percentage of the whole market. But like I said, that CBI can at least give you direction what you're going to do. But yeah, I would worry about supply and then quality. Those would be my two key ones.
Okay, well, awesome. I think, we all learned a lot about the PCR challenge and focus today, and kind of saw what Resilux's go-forward strategy using that is. So anything else you want to close us out with or mention?
No, if you're considering buying PCR from a converter, please give us a call.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Thanks for the time and the good conversation.
Well, thanks for joining me. I know you got a busy schedule, but thank everybody for joining us again on Plasticast. We look forward to seeing some feedback. If you got some questions for our sales team or for Scott, just let us know. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.